Hey, this is Joel, and I have a special treat for you. I have a fellow by the name of Jon Nastor, who, am I saying your last name right, John?
Absolutely.
All right, because I took it from how you told me it, so hopefully it's right. But John is, if you don't know him, I'll let him talk a little bit about his background, but he has an amazing podcast called Hack the Entrepreneur. He's done over 210 episodes with some of the most incredible entrepreneurs out there. I mean, a huge number of these guys you would recognize. I mean, he has talked with them all. He just came out with a new book of the same title, Hack the Entrepreneur, go figure, that I just finished reading and was blown away by, and I'll tell you some stories from that. But John, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking, I think it's called something Buzz tea. So it's like yerba mate with like some green tea and some other ginseng, I think.
Okay.
A weird mix of stuff.
Sounds tasty.
It is really tasty.
How's the weather in Canada? That's where you're coming from.
So cold. It's not even funny. It's not. Yeah. This is the first time I took my hat off and stuff. So yeah, it's winter. Definitely.
Winter in Canada. Well, it's like sunny and what is it right now? Like 50 here, and people are freaking out.
50 Fahrenheit. Yeah. So I'm in Celsius. I know I checked for a friend earlier today. Oh, what were we? We were well into the zero, like negative.
Oh
Fahrenheit.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
it's
frigid.
Like, yeah, like you would literally die in like half hour if you stayed out there right now.
That's intense.
When I say cold, I mean cold.
Yeah, you mean it. You are not messing around. So, if I haven't heard of you, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah. I am Jon Nastor. As Joel said, I'm the host of Hack the Entrepreneur. I'm also the host of another podcast, part of Copy Bloggers Rainmaker FM. I'm a co-host on The Showrunner, which is a podcast about podcasting. I started 2014, September, selfishly just wanting to start a show and talk to some really smart people. I've been working online since 2011, I believe. I went full-time online selling mostly software and such. I sell. Now I have the book that I just wrote, but I just love talking business. And so I had some really smart friends that are way smarter than me, and some mastermind people that I met before starting Hack the Entrepreneur, and they kind of kicked my butt into doing it and starting it. So after a few months of not sure, I actually did it. And yeah, it kind of really took on a life of its own. I thought it was going to be just a one-off sort of 30 episodes. I would like get to talk to some cool people, but then it kind of spiraled. And so I went all into it, and it's led me to some amazing places that I never expected, such as here with you, Joel. And so, yeah, it's an interview show about entrepreneurship, and I interview people that like have thousands of employees and make literally like $1 billion a year, and then some really smart people that travel with a laptop, have no employees, and have really successful businesses and travel the world. To me, entrepreneurship is just as simple as creating something out of nothing, and I just want to bring that to my audience and show them that everyone else out here we're all capable of doing good work. We just need to really kind of step up and do it.
Mm-hmm. So what were you doing in 2014 when you started that?
2014, early 2014, my family and I, we're a small family, so I have one daughter, and my wife and I, we like to typically travel throughout the winter because of these winters in Canada. And we were in Asia that winter. And in late March, we ended up in the Philippines for Chris Ducker's first tropical think tank. And there was 25 of us there. Pat Flynn was there, John Lee Dumas, those guys, obviously all really into podcasting. And so they were the ones who were like, you should podcast. I had a business at the time, Velocity Page, which I still have, but it allowed me time. Like I was making good money and I really didn't have to do a lot at the time. So I felt like I should do something. I'm that kind of person. I love having new projects. Mm-hmm. So I took it on, and with a lot of cool guidance from Pat himself, and then my mastermind group that I met in the Philippines, and we still talk to this day, they kind of just guided me through it. And so the summer, it was like early July, I was out at the cottage and I read Gary Vaynerchuk's Crush It again, and then that was it. I was like, I'm going to do it. I went home Monday, sent out some emails. On Thursday, I started interviewing people. I had never interviewed anybody in my life, and then I set like the goal of September 5th, I'm going to launch. So it was just over 2 months, no, just under 2 months away at the time. And I was like, I'm going to figure out, I know how to brand, I know how to market. I know what I like in a show, and it's not quite there. So I went like old school radio. I wanted like exact like music in the right places. I wanted sound effects in the right places. I wanted a hook, which ended up being the hack that I bring out at the end, which is a lesson I bring out of each episode. And I replay it at the end, and then I do an essay on it. I wanted people to just kind of be comfortable knowing what was coming, because I know people like that. So I spent that whole summer interviewing. I did 22 complete episodes. I interviewed just over 30 people, though, to get that. And I just gave it out to so many people that I knew listened to business podcasts, and to tell me, and we just worked with it, like re-editing. And then finally I had a format that I was happy with, which then actually morphed in the first 10 episodes. If you go back and ever listen, you'll see that it does change. But that was it. That was my summer that I spent 2 months. I spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours working, and I just really felt like it was going to be good and that it was going to be something. Then I launched it September 5th. I did horribly the first month, but I loved every minute of it. And then the second month, it kind of took off.
So a few things on that. So you weren't making any money off of that?
No, I got my first sponsorship offer, I think about week 7 it was.
Okay.
And I got 3 offers actually on the same week. And FreshBooks, I signed on with FreshBooks for 3 months as a sole sponsor. They're Canadian, so they dealt and I'd used their product, so it felt like a good alignment. So I gave them sole sponsorship for 3 months. They've actually signed on at this point now for 18 months. And now I have sponsorships through midroll.com as well, but that's when sponsorship started, and I used it only to hire an editor, and I hired an assistant at that point to go out and find really, really awesome guests for me. And so I used it just to put the money back into it and grow it. Right. I told myself at the beginning that I'd put all my hard work and effort into it, but I wasn't going to put money from my business into this. That was just sort of a passion project. So I wanted it to generate its own revenue, which it always has done up till this point.
Gotcha. And then something else you mentioned, masterminds. So you were part of a mastermind at the time.
I am now, still to this day. 2 guys. There was 4 of us at the beginning. Now there's 3 of us. We all met in the Philippines 2 years ago now. One guy owns a brilliant Japanese travel business. Another guy helps people become accountants. And we still meet. We have a Slack channel open right now that's always open between the 3 of us, and we meet once a week. We meet once a week on Skype, and we try and do twice a year in person somewhere in the world, where the 3 of us meet and we just work together and try and push each other to do good things. But I'd never had a mastermind before that. It's been life-changing and business-changing for me until, since then. It really has. Yeah.
I know this wasn't, we hadn't talked about this, but the concept of a mastermind seems to be so, it's very kind of ominous for a lot of people. It sounds kind of weird, and a lot of people don't really know what it is. So I'm a huge proponent of them. I think I've been in 6 different masterminds over the last decade, and every single one of them has been amazing and very different. But you guys obviously do it over. Do you mind talking about the format of it a little?
Of course, yeah. The format's changed because none of us had been in one before either. And we worked at this one. As I said, there was 4 of us at the beginning. 4th guy, super brilliant, smart dude in Australia, but he went through a lot of stuff, and we had to get rid of him because it was going to drag the rest of us down. He's actually the dude that named Hack the Entrepreneur for me. He was originally going to actually be my partner in it, but I had to push him to the side. Still one of my best friends. He's awesome. But so we've morphed through it. Right now we're doing it where it's a new year. Last year we did this big goal setting thing. It's 6 months in a year, and then we would go through where alphabetically, so we always remembered that there would be 3 of us, and so one of us would get a hot seat each week, sort of thing, and then the last one would just be whoever needed help. That would always change. If somebody had a launch coming up or a big thing, it's we would switch the order, no problem. But now we're actually doing it because I think it works better. it does work better for me. So we're all trying it now. We're doing like 90-day sprints of goals and like really, really action set. Like this is exact metrics that we're each going to hit. They're all different for each of our businesses, but each week is like 20 minutes sort of each, where we just, okay, here's what I'm doing to do it. And we track it all in a Google document that we just keep running. And then in between that, it's all Slack. We use Slack just for the three of us to just ask each other questions, send each other funny GIFs, those kind of things. Just kind of keep it going, right? Because it's isolating sometimes when you just are, we're all working in different coffee shops. One of the guy who has a travel company, I mean, he's literally all over the world every time we talk. And at the end of each call, it's always like, okay, so next week, when can it be? And we don't get off the call until then, but we keep it exactly an hour because it has to fit into all of our schedules. Yeah. So we don't drift. We don't do anything. If we want, once in a while, like once every month or two, we'll get on like on a Saturday afternoon or something, maybe have like a coffee together and just shoot the crap if you want. But we don't do that during the call because the calls are really need to be focused. Yeah. Otherwise, I've been on calls with people and it's like, oh, it goes for hours. And then it's like, oh, you dread going back on with them and you can't, right? So we need to do this every single week and we need it to work for all of our businesses. So we stay focused. And it's just like anything else in life or in business, right? We allow it to be fluid so that if we think that if one of us feels like, oh, it's not quite working well enough, what if we try this? We're like, sure, let's test it. Let's see how it works. And we'll change the format. And yeah, it's good, man. It's great. And the meeting up, obviously, together like in an actual place is really, really, really cool. Our next one I think is going to be in Northern California, which is we're planning. The last one was in Vancouver this past summer. Just go on like a little trip somewhere and it's fun, man. Just it brings us, it's a reason to go somewhere again, and it kind of takes us all, so we're all isolated, so none of us have anything sort of holding us back, and then 3 days or so just like together hanging out and just kind of working through our stuff.
Very cool.
You need help, man. You need help with this stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise we're all in our heads and you don't know, and you just need somebody just to be like, no, you're looking at it wrong, or just think about it this way, and it's like, whoa, clarity, and just run with it, right? Beautiful, man. It's beautiful.
I love it. I could not agree more. I actually have my mastermind call coming up at 2:30, so in an hour.
Nice.
Which I'm stoked for. But so yeah, so you guys do a hot seat, which for people that don't know, that is a one person just is. It's their turn to ask whatever you want, right? Ask questions, ask for help. Say I'm working on this, I need this. Say trying to work through this, I don't even know what to ask. Yeah. And the other two or the other members of the group are there to, they put all their energy into helping them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, one good thing you can put these together with Facebook groups out there now and stuff, like you're not the only person at all looking for a mastermind group. I get so many emails about them. I've actually thought of putting together like a community online where people could find them because there's so many people. And it's like, it's all I want to be is like, there's so many people in my inbox right now, like you, I say to people that also want, it's like, but I can't be like a matchmaker. I don't have the time. I'm sorry. But
mastermind matchmaker.
But you're not the only one out there trying to find these people. And if it doesn't work out, it's like any relationship, that's totally fine. But one trick for me for us is to really make sure when you do your hot seat, then at the very end of your hot seat, at least do 1 or 2 actionable things. Like force the person to, I want something actionable. So we've given you ideas for this, changing this headline or doing this new funnel. What are you going to do? And like push them, and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to change that funnel by next week. And then you kind of follow up through the week, and it just pushes you into action, right? Yeah. It's amazing what you can do when having that accountability.
Yes, I love it. One more question about that. How do you do the call? Do you do it over Skype? Do you do it over
Skype?
Okay, awesome. Do you do it video or?
No, because at least one of them is always in some like coffee shop somewhere, or something weird. So, and it's just because of bandwidth. It's, to me, make it all as simple as possible, right? Don't worry about fancy software. Don't worry about just literally Skype, voice. It's free, done. Everyone has it. Yep. Lower your barriers to entry always.
I'm the same way. We do it either over conference call or over Skype, and then we record it if someone's not there, and then we have a shared Google Doc that we do. That just is a running Google Doc, the date and the goals and the action items.
Yeah, that's smart. We used to record ours, but as we got to be more friends, some funny things ended up being said during some of them and stuff. And people are like, "What's going to ever happen to these? Like, is somebody going to stumble across us having a?" It's like, yeah, we should not record these.
Yeah, it's
Which
probably
is
smart.
like that's weird, but I'm like, no, that's actually really makes sense.
That is. That does. So, what does a day in the life look like for you?
Right
What's a typical
now,
day?
so let's go. I'm very like project based, so my life changes. I would say every 2 to 3 months, how I kind of work, how I'm acting. Right now, we're here, and I'm working a lot. So I wake up earlier than my family. My family's also home. My wife well, she doesn't work from home. She is at home. My daughter is homeschooled, so everyone's here. But I get up way before them. I instantly make a coffee right over there, and I head downstairs to my office. And I typically write. I write first thing in the morning. I'm either writing for, and not like, what would I call it, like technical sort of writing, as in like not writing just show notes for for an episode that needs to be done, because that's to me there's no creativity in that. I'm the creative flow. It's quiet. I need to be like sort of tired and bleary eyed and not thinking clearly, because then nothing distracts me. And just all of a sudden I kind of come to, and it's like I'm awake. It's 8 o'clock, and it's like, oh, I wrote for 2 hours. So that's like if I have to write for Entrepreneur, which I do every week, or I'm supposed to every week, or some other blog, then that's when I write that, or with my book. And then it's usually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday right now is a lot of interviews, starting at 10 a.m. and then those go till about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Sometime in there I get to come up for lunch. And then I come out and hang out with my family. But then usually around 7 or 8, I'll head back down to my office for a few hours, and get some more quiet sort of work done. I work really well early morning, although I'm not a morning person, but because of that bleary state. And then I work really well again evening to late at night. I don't know why my body just all of a sudden picks back up and I have focus and I can do it. I get really distracted Thursday, Friday between not having interviews and scheduled appointments usually. So between my morning coffee and the end of the day, sometimes nothing gets done, but I'm like there all day doing stuff.
More reactive, right?
Exactly. Yeah. As I said, I was on calls with a bunch of people today, and which work sometimes, right? They need to be done, but that's generally my life. But I mean, right before this, I spent a lot of time just kind of hanging out with my family, especially through the summer and stuff. We were out in the West Coast for the summer, and so it changes.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm like head down working and promoting the book, so it's a lot.
So let's talk about the book then. The book Hack the Entrepreneur. It's the same thing, or it's the same name as your podcast. When I first jumped into it, I had never seen like a format like this where you have a quote and then you talk about it, and there are lessons, right? So tell me about how that came to be, because I thought I was really impressed with it. I thought it was really cool.
So that is my show. Like, not that the book is my show, but that's exactly how. So there's a hack, right? It's called Hack the Entrepreneur. Typically, I'm really against hacks and stuff, but I loved the name. And then I needed something that was that. So every conversation I have, I pull out either from 5 seconds to 1 minute long section of what my guest says, something that I think aligns really well right now with what will help my audience. And so I pick that back out and I replay it with sound effects at the end, and we call it the hack. Then I do what I call my essay, some people call my rant, after it, where I kind of tie it into your business or your life, and really hit it home. And so I have almost 200 of them. So I kept getting emailed all the time by listeners. When are you putting the book together? When are you going to do this? And it's like literally to the point where they had mapped out my book almost for me. And finally I was like, I got to just do this. So on my site, when I moved from my own, when I was totally solo, to when I joined like Copyblogger and Rainmaker, and they built me my own site, at that point I had, I think about I had about 75 episodes. And so I was already like, got a lot of content. How do we sort of organize them? So I went through and I found sort of a pattern, but it didn't make sense at the time. But then I went through, got like the habits and the mindset and all that stuff, which was going to ultimately be the book then. But then when I went through, there was so many in like some categories and none in others. So I actually I switched it around and I changed the 5 categories in my book, So it's like getting started. And so it's a logical sequence. So getting started, whether that's getting started in business or getting started in like a new business venture or a new idea, or a new project. It's sort of setting up the foundation. Then there's the mindset, which to me is the most important part of any of this stuff. Then there's an ideas section. So coming up with business ideas, deciding what to work on. Then there's the being wrong section, which probably covers all of the book and all of our lives because it's a constant thing we go through. And then at the end, it's growth. So I put a sort of logical sequence into it. I went through all of my hacks, and then started piecing out like who would fit where on like Trello boards and like yellow Post-it notes everywhere. And it was just a matter of like figuring it out. And so we have the 5 categories. There's 10 hacks per, and then we edited the hacks down so they made sense. And then I rewrote like a lesson for each one to kind of tie it into the book. Then the whole thing is prefaced with intros and outros for each section and also for the book. And then Mr. Chris Brogan wrote the foreword for it as well. So the idea was that it should be really, you can pick it up and read it right through on an airplane ride, but then when it's all of a sudden like you're in the ideas section of your book, of your project, you can be like, okay, just go to the ideas section and get inspired into that. And it's kind of like, okay, now go back. Everything is written so that it's individual. I did that on purpose, and I did that for my own benefit, but so that it's not like, oh, and when we talked about that back there, it's like there's none of that. It's literally, this is, each little 2-page thing is its own idea that you can use to take action on.
The thing that I loved about it the most, and when I first emailed you back, I told you this, but the fact that I emailed you and said, first off, I love the absence of fluff. There is absolutely not one word that shouldn't be in there that, you know, where most books do, they spend the first chapter, they tell you the point, and then the next 30 pages is reiterating it, giving a million different examples, stories, and by the time you're just like, what did I just spend a half an hour reading, you know? And it literally, there's a quote, and then you have maybe like 3 to 6 paragraphs explaining it and how it applies, and that's it. I mean, a lot of them fit on one page.
They do, yeah, and that makes me so happy to hear.
And it was just so refreshing. I was just like, man, this is my kind of book. And like you said, I read a lot of it straight through, but then also I found myself, and I actually wrote a blog post talking about this, but one thing I love to do in the mornings is just read something or listen to something or just something that kind of sets the tone for the day, right? So it's not all about me. It's about, you know, what kind of puts me in the right mood to get started working, you know, maybe something that inspires me or, you know, what problem am I facing that I can get a little bit of insight on. So I love playing a podcast, you know, downstairs while we're getting ready or one morning I woke up and it was growth that I was like trying to work through something on in my business, growing. And so I just, in bed before my wife was up, I flipped through to the growth chapter. I read one of the chapters. I was just like, this is exactly what I needed, you know? And I jumped out of bed, which I don't usually do, you know? And I was just like, man, I am ready for the day. And so it's amazing for that. But that's one of the reasons, you know, I don't interview too many people. And I was like, man, I need to talk to this guy more because he gets it.
That's awesome.
So I love that. And the other thing I really liked, besides we both have awesome glasses, is that our love-hate relationship with hacks, right? You have the Hack the Entrepreneur. I have the Entrepreneur Productivity Hacks, of course, which is really funny now that I say that out loud. And I don't like that word any more than you do, but it does kind of encapsulate something that is exactly what we're trying to say, right? But when you kind of take and dissect the word hack, you know, and what they are and the best way to use them, you said something to me in the pre-interview that I really liked, just talking about the concept of hacks. You said there's no set way to be productive or successful. I mean, tell me about that a little bit. Is that something you get a lot from people?
Yeah, so that was the idea when I created the show, I mean, the original About Me page, I think mine still now to this day says that I want to bring you what people, how they think, how they act, how they do, what they do in their business, not so that you can copy it, but so that you can get insight into the fact that I had been in business for so long and I got to talk to so many smart people that I sort of saw this correlation. And now interviewing over 200 people, I mean, I asked the exact same question to over 200 people now at the very beginning of my interview. And not one person has ever said the same thing. Yet they're all super successful in their ways that they've chosen to be. And I find that really, really, really interesting and cool and inspiring, because hacks aren't supposed to be so that you can then go and copy all of them and then change your complete path and be like, well, Jon Nastor does it this way, so I'm going to do it that way. It's like, that's not what it's for, because that's called a shiny object, and that's going to distract you from doing the work you need to do. The idea is to just get insights into how other people do it, not necessarily just so you could maybe try some of those things in your life, but also to just know that, okay, John's doing this and Joel's doing his way completely confidently and successfully. And you need to kind of just gain that confidence in the fact that everything that's within you, no matter what that is right now and how you're working and how you're dealing with procrastination or whatever it is everything you need to be successful. As long as you do it confidently and know that there is no entrepreneur little thing that you have to fit into at all. It's absolutely what you are, but you have to gain it with that confidence. So my job is to show you 200 and hopefully 500 or 1,000 at some point, different people all doing it 100% completely different. Never the same answers, yet they're all really successful. Why is that? Because they do it confidently in themselves, in their business, in their ideas, and confidence in the fact of just being sort of fluid and knowing that tomorrow and next month and next year, I'm going to be different than I am now. I'm going to grow. I'm going to change. I'm going to try different things. Right now, I'm waking up really early in the morning. Possibly in 3 months, I might be again back to sleeping until 10 or 11 in the morning and staying up really late. I go through those phases. I used to worry about those phases and be like, no, I can't sleep until 11. That's not what successful people do. It's like, yeah, they do if that's what they need to do. And then they stay up and work late. But just because one guy gets up at 5 in the morning and works out and eats like paleo and does all these things, it's like, that's not necessarily for you. That's my job. My job is to bring you these ideas so that they inspire you and give you ideas that all these different, and you might get one thing from this and be like, that might actually work for me. Or else you'll probably actually be like, wow, I used to do that and I stopped doing that because I thought I couldn't do that and be successful. Yet, here's that person in there. They made like $1.5 million last year doing that exact same thing. And then you can be like, oh, I just have to be myself. I have to be confident. And your business is an extension of you, right? It's just these creations of literally just something out of nothing, all based on your sort of cockiness. You have to have a certain level of cockiness to create something out of nothing, put it out into the world and ask for money back in return or attention or whatever it is you're trying to gain. It's absolutely essential, right? And so I hope that by showing enough different people doing enough different things, yet still doing it in their way, that you will glean some insight into that and some confidence in your own way, whatever wacky way that is that you work.
Love it. Awesome. And there is such a huge amount of information, especially for people starting businesses, right? Online and, on podcasts, on all these things, and it's almost like this is a phase that people go through when they start. I mean, they go in and try to copy somebody, right? But then they see someone else doing it another way and they try to do it that way. And then they try to do it this way and then this way and then this, and then they finally get so frustrated that they're like, okay, there's something not right about what I'm doing, and that's when they hear from people like you. You're not supposed to, it's not about copying. It's about, using those people just to see how they do it and, maybe test something, but do it your way. But, did you ever get caught up in that when you were starting? Just, this information overload?
Yeah.
And how do you balance that with action?
It doesn't bother me anymore at all because I'm comfortable with this sort of uncomfortableness of entrepreneurship and taking ideas and running with them and having them flop or fail or whatever and just bounce into other stuff. Really, I would love right now like a couple of months of inaction and just like not doing anything. It doesn't happen anymore. Once you gain that little bit of traction, and you get that glimmer to like, to me, it's that first bit when you get that like transaction of money into a PayPal account or something, and you're just like, wow, I've never met that person. They literally took money from their bank and put it into mine. Okay, I got to just find out how to do this like 100 times a day, and I'm golden kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you never look back. And then momentum breeds more momentum, right? So as you start going, as I start talking to more people with interviews, as I start reaching out to more ways in business, more people see you, more people hear you, more people get introduced to you, more people come to you with more opportunities, and it's snowballs, right? That's why people can look like from the outside like it's an overnight success, because nobody heard of me for the first 4 years until I launched a podcast, and then nobody really heard of me even for the next like 4 or 5 months. Some people did, and some people noticed, and some people listened, but then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, and then Jon just comes out of nowhere. It's like, yeah, nowhere. Like 6 years I've been doing this online, and I've been like supporting my family with it, but I've been doing it sort of behind the scenes and not in a public way. And so it's funny, right? It's like, yeah, I guess 6 years to overnight success, but that's how we see it, right? I mean, we see this with bands. I still play in 2 bands, and I'm really into it. And bands, all of a sudden, it's like, well, this brand new band came out. It's like, yeah, but they have 3 other albums nobody ever heard about. They've been traveling around the country in a van for years, working their butt off, and now they have a hit. They didn't just start. Trust me, like none of us just start, and then all of a sudden, that's just not how it works. So you really you have to go for those small wins and find them, because once you find them, it kind of changes. You have this. The way I pictured it is you've got like a neuron, like sort of pathway in your brain changes, and it never goes back. And all of a sudden it's like, that's why like in 2011, I discovered the internet as a business, and instantly I was like, I'm never going back offline. Somebody tells me they want to start an offline business, and I'm like, what are you doing? The internet, man, we have access to the whole world. And I can close my laptop, and we can put it in a backpack and go. So it's just get those small wins early on and take those small wins and start rolling them into bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger wins. You don't get like to point C from point A without going straight through point B first. It's impossible. You just have to take those small steps.
Speaking of small wins, when you say, you have to get those small wins, is that something that you kind of have to... A lot of people I know, and myself included, how about just that, is a lot of times I never wanted to, like whenever I had a small win, I would always just kind of push it to the side, and I would just be like, you know what, I cannot celebrate for a second because something bad's going to happen, I was always, I still am, I'm working on kind of changing, but that is something that I've always struggled with of, if the second I start celebrating or, being kind of proud of what I did, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, in my book, I call it the 24-hour reset, I believe, which is what I've always done to kind of push the growth forward. Because opposite to you, most people get a small win or a medium win, and then we rest on our laurels for the next week or 2. And when we haven't done really anything to progress ourselves further, 2 weeks later, we just like think back and get that nice glowy feeling of that win 2 weeks ago. And it's like, no, you can't do that. You have to me, it's like you have to reset it, like celebrate it as much. And also when things go terrible today, take it in, like really let it hit you and go down. Don't avoid it. Like this is part of life. This is what makes life exciting, the highs, the lows, right? So take it in and just let it bring you down and learn from it. And then at the 24-hour mark, that's it. Let's move on. Now let's start fresh and let's go for it. But to go back,
go ahead.
But to go back to the small wins thing, the reason why I do this, and this is like how I created the podcast, and this is how I wrote a book, for somebody who doesn't even consider themselves a writer at all. I mean, people now tell me I'm a writer from before the book because I write for places, and it's like, oh, I just grew up as a kid. It's like, you can't write. You don't know where to put commas and stuff. And I was always, it's like, no, I don't need to know that. I have editors who do that stuff, I've learned. But it's self-awareness, right? So really understanding, this goes back to the whole concept of the hacks. You really have to know that you are your biggest own barrier and hurdle to doing anything that you possibly want. And so the more you can kind of internalize and be like, so why am I being unproductive? And so my thing is that I take a big idea like a book and to me, it's like I have no idea how I would write a novel still, because it seems like you have to go logically. But to me, the reason why this is in bite-sized chunks isn't just for you, the reader, although I really like that it's like that, but it's so I could get my head around it. So I literally broke it all down. Everything had a pink sheet of paper in front of me. Everything moved to a Trello board. If you don't know what Trello is, it's Trello.com. It's a free software. And it's like basically a little card for each thing. So I had an intro, I had 5 sections, I had an outro, and each thing had 10 in it. And so literally, it wasn't like, okay, I got to start at an intro and work my way through.
Right.
That's daunting. Jon, you know yourself. You will not do this. It's way too big of a project, and you'll just distract yourself on Twitter for the next 3 months. So one thing gave myself, like, I think it was 7 weeks to write the book and launch it. And so I just did it like this, and literally I would just sit down in the morning. It's like 5 in the morning, open my laptop, look, and just quickly go through and just pick a Trello card. This one, I could write this right now. I know it. Write it, and that was it. Go to the totally random another one. And so it was just, the concept was just that it was such a little thing. It was literally like 500 words or less I had to write. That's simple, right? Mm-hmm. But you all of a sudden do 75 of them, and it's like, oh, there we go. I got a book.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? But it was literally me just tricking. You can call it hacking if you want, but it was totally me tricking myself into getting something done. And this is just me being self-aware enough to know that I'm kind of a lazy person. And I can't really focus very well. I'm kind of ADD, that whole entrepreneur disease, where I get distracted. So I have to sort of work around that rather than just like, well, put up my hands and be like, I guess I can never write a book. I guess I can never do this. I guess because I'm just not built like that. It's like, no, I am. I'm built maybe not exactly perfectly for it, but I'll just work around myself. That's all it is. That's all I did. And I think it's kind of essential. It's not embarrassing. It doesn't make you less of a person. It actually makes you better from the outside. People are like, wow, you wrote a book. It's like, yeah. And I think of all the tricks and goofy things I had to do to fool myself into getting this big project done. But that's how it works. That's how we all work.
Yeah. You broke it down into the pieces that you knew you could do, and they were there already. Though that's the other thing is you didn't just write a book. You did 210 episodes, and the book was there. You just kind of had to carve it out. You had to split it into those 5 sections, organize it, turn it into a different format. But the content, the ideas were there.
Right, and then I just had to fill it out with writing and making it kind of make sense to me, and then also give it to people way smarter than me to feed back on it and tear parts apart and be like, oh, you can do way better here, Jon. A story should go here because it seems like I felt like I was drifting, so maybe if you could put something in that draws me back in. It was like, that's what you have to do. I mean, that's what I did with my show. It's like, just there's brilliant people around you. You don't have to be the one. You can just be the one in the middle that gets all the credit for it, but you don't have to be that super smart people. They're everywhere. You just have to ask for help. I mean, it's just how it is. I was freaked out to email Chris Brogan. I'm like, giant favor, man. Could you possibly do this? And I need it in like a week. He's like, dude, that's not a big favor at all. He's like, yeah, man, I'll do that for you tomorrow. It's like, wow, forward by Chris Brogan. Awesome. But you just, that's what you have to do. Yeah. Just ask people. People are willing to help. I'm willing to help. Everyone's willing to help.
You put in the time though up front. You did a lot of things for other people. You weren't just asking for random favors. I mean,
no, but I mean, and it was something that I was working super hard on. And so when I mean ask people, I mean I'm asking for feedback on really hard work I've done. I'm not like, well, can you do this for me? But it was like, I've written this, but as self-aware as I try and be, it was in my own head, and I have it all out in Google Docs, and it's like you start to doubt yourself because it's just you, and it's like, okay, no, I got to give this out to 5 people just privately and get them to tear it apart and make it better, and not take offense to it, not think that, well, it's my baby, I can't. It's like, no, I want it to be better, and the more people I include in this project, the better it will be. Mm-hmm. It's just how it works.
What's your goal for the book?
10,000 copies by the end of the year.
It is 10,000 copies. Awesome. I love that. And it's on Amazon, right?
It is.
I'll throw a link to it in the below the video, below the interview. You can get it on Kindle or hardcover, right? And what's the price?
It's $2.99 for the digital copy and $17.99 for paperback.
So if you're on Kindle and you can buy a cup of coffee, this book is like, how many hacks total are there in it? 50. Yeah, it's like 50 cups of coffee because they will make you want to get up and do something. So it's split into 5 sections. It's getting started, mindset, ideas, being wrong, and growth. And I love the being wrong section just as a stage because it's kind of the 5 stages, right, of entrepreneurship. What are there any of these hacks that you find yourself going back to more than others? What were some of your favorites?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this one actually is the thing that got me through writing the book because I ended up doing this one kind of at a point where I was ready to quit completely. But it's by Oren Klaff. So he's the founder of Intersection Capital, which funds startups. And he also wrote the book Pitch Anything. Amazing book. But his is called, it's called From Good to Bored to Great, which doesn't make sense now if I'm thinking about it. But that's totally besides the point. A lot of people quit when they're tired. An entrepreneur should only quit when they're done. To me, that's like so just, I want to actually like get a poster made, put that above my desk because it's true. All of us will, that's what we'll do. And he funds startups. And so the conversation was, where we took it out of the context, was the fact that he's like, I literally daily sit down and my team sits down with people who want millions and millions of dollars. Some of the best ideas ever that I've heard will sit across from me and they won't even want that much money for me to get a huge stake in it. But if I say no to him once, they're already packing up to leave. And it's just, I get the feeling instantly from them that this is not the person who will ever take this idea or this company to where it needs to go because I said no to him, or he was tired, or something is going to happen where he's just going to be like, that's it, I got to pack up. Rather than, no, this is my vision, and until I get there, I'm not going to stop. And so, to me, that's so succinct and just amazing. Don't quit when you're tired, man. Quit when you're done. There's no better way.
That is amazing. That's one of my favorite ones. I really liked. Like I said, the growth thing for me was super relevant. Also love the learning to think big in the growth section, and just consciously thinking. Or you said the concept of thinking big, but at the same time, when you start out doing everything yourself, at the same time, it's kind of contrarian thinking with that.
Yeah, and the person who said that, Gabriel Weinberg, he's founded 2 other companies and sold them, and now he started DuckDuckGo, which is in direct competition with Google. So if you're thinking big, don't just be like, well, that's just him saying that. It's like, no, he's taking on one of the largest companies in the world. Would you like me to read it?
Please.
So learn to think big. You have to learn to think big and small. You have to go in the same direction with small day-to-day decisions as well as big actions. Once you are on your way, you will mostly have to occupy yourself with little things, which can be tedious. Nevertheless, you are the one who has to do them right. And that was his whole thing. It's like, that's where success comes from, is this always keeping this vision of big, but not being the person especially at the beginning, but he's not even at the beginning stage, but he still thinks like this, where that's too small for me. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just let somebody else do a half-assed job with that. He's like, you are the person. If this all fails, they just go get another job, but this is everything you've created. So you need to keep that vision to focus us, but at the same time, you have to, day to day, you need to get this stuff done. You're not above it. Just because you're the CEO and the founder doesn't mean you're above it. If you think you are, you're going to be working for somebody else.
And that dovetails beautifully with From Good to Bored to Great, which I think is a great title. But quitting when you're tired versus, quitting when you're done. Having that, being able to see the bigger picture, between bored and done. But my question for you is, and we'll get to wrapping this up, but is, it's a tough question, and I know I'm just throwing it at you, but when a lot of people confuse bored with I'm not doing the right thing, what's the difference?
So, Good to Bored to Great, the title comes from this concept of, there's this report, and you can look this up, I think on Wikipedia. I can't remember the guy's name because I'm not a sports person, but there's this famous trainer years ago who trained like this obscene amount of brilliant
He
Olympic
trained
athletes.
and Olympians.
Olympian athletes. And the thing was like, let's look at him and ask, because he's trained all these people, what's the correlation, right? What's the hack that I can then just copy and do it? And he says there's only one, and it's when most people get bored, they quit. Except these people, they have this knack where they can turn off boredom and ignore it and work through it. So when everybody else goes home, this guy's still doing high jump for the next 8 hours and for the next 8 weeks and the next 8 years. That's the only way to be great, because you go from good to bored, and then if you keep going, you get great. But most people quit at boredom. That's just how it goes. And you have to do this. There's been many times in 200 episodes that when I'm going to publish the episode that it gets boring, but you have to push through it. Greatness comes on that side. And to me, that was like the most brilliant thing. I'm not even a sports person, but I was like, that's awesome. One thing that's awesome that everybody was like looking for, what's that one thing that I can do to become a great athlete? It's like, just ignore boredom, man. Just work through. A person doesn't think this is all amazing, trust me. But they love winning gold, and that part's awesome, and that part's great, but you have to work through the boredom. That whole 10,000 hours, 9,000 of those hours are boring as heck. That's just the way it is, man.
Learn to love the boredom and the process.
Exactly, or ignore the boredom, however you have to get through it, but learn to love being great on the other side. And there's no other way. Every great guitarist, every great entrepreneur, every great athlete has gone through sitting in their room or by themselves on the field or in their office. That's just how it is. And you want to look, and you can just like look at them on this pedestal later and be like, they were just born there. It's like, no, none of us were just born there. We went from good to bored to great, and that takes a lot of boredom. It does.
6-year overnight success, right?
Exactly.
Love that. I remember first reading that story about the trainer on James Clear.
He was on my show. I interviewed him, and then he brought it up, and I was like, that's freaking brilliant.
Yeah. Yes, I absolutely love it. I hadn't heard it said like from good to bored to great, though. That's incredible. So, I mean, that's a perfect way to kind of wrap this up. That's amazing. So, how can people find you?
HackTheEntrepreneur.com is the main site. HTE book goes straight to the sort of page about the book. You can kind of see who's in it, the 50 entrepreneurs, or just go straight to Amazon. If you want to meet with me directly, Twitter, at Jon Nastor, JONNASTOR. I'm on there way too much. And yeah, otherwise just contact me like straight through my website. I'm answer every single question. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to kick your butt through anything you're struggling with. But yeah, pick up the book first, because otherwise I'm going to send you there for $3.
$3.
If you're not willing to take that step, then there's not much I can do for you, or Joel can do.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. The book is amazing, and like I said, I'll include links to everything, but appreciate it.
Oh man, absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Definitely.